Joining me now is writer and broadcaster Esther Krakue. Esther, there's always so much speculation around Harry when he visits the UK. Tell us about this Invictus Games event and who from the royal family attended.
So Harry came to the UK for the Invictus Games 10th anniversary, and he made it clear that through his press team that he wasn't able to meet the King because of the King's schedule. He did extend invitations to other members of the royal family, including his brother and his sister-in-law, all of whom did not attend because they had other engagements. Obviously, in the case of Princess Catherine, she hasn't been engaging in any sort of public appearances because of her cancer treatment. Now, the press are dubbing this incident as a snub from King Charles for not making room in his diary. But that's not really the entirety of the story. We do know that the King is still undergoing cancer treatment, and he's slowly being eased back into royal duties after what he described as, being released from his cage. In his first year of being king, something he's waited for his entire life, he's been diagnosed with cancer, and I'm sure that's something that he's really distraught about, not least because he doesn't feel like he can give his all to a role that he's waited for all his life. I do find it curious that this information about Harry not being able to meet his father came from Prince Harry's PR team. It's actually quite consistent with what we've seen with the Sussexes over the last few years. Every sort of kind of briefing about the Sussexes and the royal family, whether they're being able to meet or coming to certain engagements or the King's coronation or anything like that, has come from the Sussexes team. And this is one of the reasons why you can see that there's not a lot of trust between the royal family and the Sussexes. They are the ones that have briefed the press on virtually everything. The royal family have made a point of staying mute on anything to do with Harry and Meghan. They have not briefed in private or publicly about anything to do with the Sussexes. They made it very clear that there's a clear line between them and Harry and Meghan. And you can see why, particularly Prince William wouldn't want Harry and his wife around the royal family. This is a particularly stressful time for King Charles and Princess Catherine as they're undergoing cancer treatment. They don't need any of the stress or the drama or the kind of tabloid fodder of having the couple around. And I'm sure Meghan feels similarly because she also didn't come for the Invictus Games 10th anniversary, which is something that many of us found quite surprising because she's made a point of supporting Harry in the Invictus Games at other events. Harry did have the company of the Spencer family, so the Earl of Spencer and Lady Jane Fellow, who did attend the event, but unfortunately no members of the royal family, other members of the royal family did, which is probably to his benefit.
And we know that Charles is claimed to have been too busy to see Harry, but we understand Harry may have made some additional demands for that meeting. Is that right?
Yeah, so apparently it's been rumored that he didn't want Queen Camilla to be present at his meeting with the King. He wanted a sort of a private audience. Again, this isn't showing someone acting in good faith. I think he can understand why there will be an acrimonious relationship between him and the Queen. He did have not very many polite things to say about her in his book Spare. But what really all of this is indicating is that it's either Harry's way or the highway. And I think you can see that consistently with how the Sussexes have conducted themselves. Unfortunately for them, by being as vocal as they have been about their experiences in the royal family, they give the public a lot to criticize and a lot to scrutinize. I think they're realizing similarly the big mistake that Prince Andrew made, especially when you're making criticisms of people that have no right of reply. The royal family were never going to respond to any of the allegations that were made. They were never going to respond to the Oprah interview or the Netflix documentary, any of that. And by doing so, they've inevitably had the upper hand because we have never heard their side of the story and we never will. There have never been courtiers that have come forward to say or to talk about the conduct of the Sussexes at all. And that really works in the royal family's favor. So you can see how this adds to the frustration of Harry being unable to control the narrative, which is why he has made the point of constantly briefing the press when the royal family have stayed absolutely silent on anything to do with the Sussexes.
And as you said, Meghan didn't attend the Invictus event, but she did meet Harry in London before flying to Nigeria. Now, we discussed the likelihood of this last week on the show. Has there been any further reports on why the Sussexes chose that approach?
So there have been rumors that the PR team that they've now employed to kind of clean up Meghan's image in the UK advised her to not kind of make a showing of herself in the UK at the Invictus Games 10th anniversary. I did suspect that she would fly to the UK before flying to Nigeria because just logistically, it's just a common route. There are loads of flights from London and from Western Europe to Nigeria, as opposed to having a long haul flight from California to Nigeria, which is not possible at the moment. So I did know that I suspected that she would come to the UK, but I didn't think she was going to attend the Invictus Games anniversary, which she didn't. I do find it curious that they've employed a PR team. They're probably looking to go the same route as King Charles did with Queen Camilla back in 2006 after they got married, to try and clean up her image in the public. But one thing they don't understand is the royal family is very much dependent on public opinion, and public opinion only shifts once you've had skin in the game, once you've proven yourself, once you've engaged in public duty and public service for quite a significant amount of time. I mean, Queen Camilla's positive image in the eyes of the public didn't come overnight. She was basically the face of a hate campaign following King Charles's disillusion with his marriage with Princess Diana and her subsequent death. So that's something that the Sussexes don't really understand. You can't just, blame the public not liking Meghan on things like racism. She's had her say. She's had a lot to say. She's had the interview with Oprah and the Spotify podcast and her Netflix documentary. If after everything she said that she still doesn't endear herself to the public, then I think it's because actually the public don't like her or what she has to say, as opposed to it being for other reasons. So them employing a PR company is a bit strange, but it also shows the fixation on their public image. I think the penny is finally dropping that actually a lot of what they can do successfully is dependent on public opinion of them. And the South Park episode, for example, that mocked them really showed that they have fallen high from grace, basically.
Absolutely. Now, this trip to Nigeria, can you run us through it? What was on the itinerary and what's your take? Did it look like a non-royal tour to you?
It kind of bordered that. I think this is as far as they can go in kind of the faux royal tour. So they're invited by the Nigerian Defense Chief of Staff, which is the highest military role you can have in Nigeria. Nigeria has the largest military on the African continent and the highest conscription of females, which is about 30% of non-active personnel are women, which is quite remarkable. Now, we know that Nigeria sent delegates for the last Invictus Games, and the Nigerian Chief of Staff that invited them, Defense Chief of Staff that invited them, wanted to maybe broach the topic of Nigeria hosting Invictus Games in the future, but also to commemorate and to congratulate the couple on their work for actually really encouraging veterans to get back into the fold and using sport as a way to sort of get their lives back after unfortunately getting injured while on active service. They also had a few other engagements. Prince Harry talked about mental health. Meghan co-hosted a summit on women in leadership, which seems to be her shtick. And so, they had a few cultural engagements. They visited a school. Meghan also talks about the fact that she is 40% Nigerian, according to an ancestry thing that she did. She has 40% Nigerian heritage, and she made a point of saying that she sees herself in the children that she visited in the school. I do find kind of that to be an interesting fixation of particularly Black Americans. They come to like West Africa and do like a test and say, oh, I'm 60% Cameroonian or anything like that. And I can say this as someone who went to school in Ghana. We had a lot of people like this, and we just think, okay, but what else do you know about your country of heritage? And it's kind of like just a fun pastime. It's not really anything serious, but Meghan saw it as a way of connecting with obviously these children that she was there with. I suspect she might have had a bit more finesse had she still been in the royal family fold to find connections in different ways. I mean, if you look at the late Queen's tours that she did around the world, she never said, oh, I'm a fifth Finnish or an eighth Russian or anything like that, like Elizabeth Warren tried to do in the US, saying she's like an eighth Native American. Those kinds of connections don't really land very well. It's more to do with kind of respect for the culture and how you find it fascinating and other points of connection. But this is kind of diplomacy a la Meghan. It's kind of a new brand of reaching out that the Sussexes are trying out, and they will make mistakes. But this trip seemed mainly to focus on the Invictus Games, and I think that the royal family breathed a sigh of relief because there was clearly no kind of crossover between their former lives as working royals and what they are trying to do now.
Absolutely. Excellent observations as always, Esther Krakue. Thank you so much for joining us.